Hi, my name is Joanna Nakfar. I'm a Senior Mobile Technical Account Manager here at Red Hat, and I'm here to present a step-by-step tutorial for continuous integration with Jenkins on the Red Hat Mobile Native Android application. There are two parts to this tutorial. In part 1, we'll be creating unit tests for Red Hat Mobile Native Gradle Android application, and in part 2, we'll integrate this with Jenkins. It is assumed for prerequisites that you have access to a Red Hat mobile application instance and that you have downloaded and installed an Android Studio in your development machine. The topics covered today: we're going to create an Android application using RHMap, and then we're going to create Android unit tests and instrumented test for that app, and then we're going to add these unit tests to Gradle, run these unit tests, and show results. So for the first step, let's go to our portal, our RHMap portal, and let's create a project. We're going to do new project, and we're going to pick native Gradle Android blank project. And then we're going to give it a name, a meaningful name, and I'm going to hit create. For this tutorial, I have already created a project from before, and it should look something like that for you. You should see a cloud app and a native Android Gradle app. In the cloud app, as usual, you have to remember that you have to go deploy, hit deploy, and make sure that it's running before we can actually build and run the application. We're going to go back to our blank native Android Gradle, and we're going to copy the link, the Git link, to our source code. Now we're going to go to our desktop, and we're going to do git clone, and we're going to clone the URL. Just do git clone and then enter the git clone. I already did that before, and then after you git clone, you should see the source code. Now that we have the source code on our machine, we can use Android Studio to import the project, and then we should be able to see something like this. If we look under app, we have the source folder, and under the source folder with the template app, you're going to see Android test folder. This Android test folder is where all the instrumented tests reside. And with it, you're going to have two tests that are already there, the test that the application main activity has launched, and then it's ready for testing. And we're going to add another test in a little bit. Now, to add unit tests, you have to add this folder called test under app. So you right click and you say new directory and you give it the right name, and after test, and then after that you have to add the Java folder. So you right click on test, say new folder Java, and you make sure that it's under app, under test Java. You get the URL of your app, and then here's where we're going to add unit tests for our code. As an example today, we're going to start by adding the unit tests, and we're going to add two utility functions, one for adding numbers and one for multiplying numbers, just for simplicity. So under test, we right click, say new, and we add, say under Java, we right click, we say new Java class, and in this Java class we're going to write, right here, under main, under Java, this is where we write our code. We right click, we say new Java class, and then we write two functions under our number operation utility, one for adding numbers and one for multiplying numbers. Now that we have the two functions, we can add the tests for it. We go back to folder under test, right click, say new Java class, give it a meaningful name. In this case, we called it number operation utility test, and we add two tests. One to assert that if we add 100 and 200, it will give us 300. One to assert that if we multiply 100 by 200, it will give us 20,000. So these are the two tests for our utilities. Next, we're going to add an instrumented test. And in our instrumented test, we're going to check the display. And the first thing that comes up on the display, we're going to check that there's two words, hello world. So we go to our resources layout. This is the main layout that comes out when the app comes up, and we're going to add a text view. And the text view, we're going to say hello world. To add an instrumented test, for this, we right click under Android test, right click, say new Java class, give it a meaningful name again, and we add the one function that's using Espresso. Make sure you import all these libraries so that on view it can test for the word hello world. Now that we have the test, we have our code, we have to tell Gradle to actually run and build the unit tests. And for that, make sure under app, you open the build.gradle, you add, under default configuration, you add the runner, and then under dependencies, you add the dependencies for unit tests and the temp dependencies for instrumented unit tests. Some of these are optional for later usage. Now that we know Gradle is ready, we have to do one more thing. In order to run the instrumented tests, you have to make sure you either have an emulator running or you have a device connected to your machine. In my case, I have a device connected to my machine, and I make sure that it is unlocked, because Gradle, when it tries to run the instrumented test, it's going to open the app, check for these two words, and then close the app. So we can build it from here, or we can do command line. We're going to do command line because we need this for Gradle. In the folder where our code is, we run this command. Make sure our .gradlew is executable. If it's not, change mod it to be executable. We run assemble, connected Android test for the instrumented tests, and test for the unit test. And we're going to run this command. At this moment, I can see that it launched the app on my device, showing the hello world. It's probably doing its testing, and then it closed it down. So we will see in a little bit that it will continue running to show us the test results. Okay, build was successful. Now let's take a look at the test results. We have to open two files, one for the unit tests and one for the instrumented unit tests. So let's go back to our browser. The first one is for your instrumented test. Open the file in your application folder or your source code folder under app, build, reports, Android test, connected, index.html. You can see the URL of your app. You click on it. It will show you two. These are the instrumented tests. The one that comes with the template app are these two. And then the one we added is the hello world on screen that it passed. Now for the unit test, you're going to open another file under app, build, reports, tests, debug, index.html. We're going to go in here and we're going to see that we have the number operation utility test. That's the one that we just added. There's testing adding two numbers and testing multiplying two numbers, and they passed. And that's it for part 1 of this tutorial. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in part 2.